Hello guys, welcome to Economics with Mekala. Today's lesson is going to be about change in demand and change in quantity demanded. We all know change in demand is occurring due to changes in determinants of demand. But change in quantity demanded is occurring due to changes in price. A change in demand is occurring due to changes in determinants of demand. If we look at determinants of demand, changes in consumer income, changes in population, changes in prices of substitutes or complementary goods, and even changes in consumer taste or fashion can impact on changes in demand. When we say changes in demand, this can shift the entire demand curve either right or left. If you look at the graph I'm sharing with you, you can see the original demand is at D1, whereas the demand has shifted to D2. So this is a situation where there is a change in demand, where the demand curve is shifting either right or left. Always try to remember, a change in demand will shift your demand curve either right or left. Let's try to understand this graph. If you look at this graph, the original demand for this product is D1, but the demand curve has shifted to D2. That can be a reason like a rise in consumer income. If you take a rise in consumer income, that will give consumers more opportunities to buy more goods. So as a result, the amount of goods and services they will demand will increase. Therefore, the quantity has shifted from cube 1 to cube 2. I want you to have a close look at this graph. If you look at D1 and D2, when you're moving from D1 to D2, the demand has increased, so your demand curve shifted right. Same time, quantity has increased from Q1 to Q2. But if you look at the price level in the market, it hasn't changed. So why the quantity demanded has increased? Due to a change in demand that can be due to increased income of consumers. A change in quantity demanded is occurring due to change in price. If you look at this graph I'm sharing with you, prices at level of P1 where the quantity demanded is Q1. When the price moved from P1 to P2, what has happened? The quantity demanded has increased from Q1 to Q2. So you can see when there is a change in price, that made changes to quantity demanded. When there is a change in quantity demanded, there is a movement along the demand curve. If you look at the movement along the demand curve in this graph, when the quantity increased from Q1 to Q2, there is a movement from point A to point B along the demand curve. So always remember, how can we recognize a change in quantity demanded? There will be a movement along the demand curve. When we are considering a change in quantity demanded, there are other factors affecting demand for a product. So we assume all these other determinants are remaining constant. Therefore, we are considering only the changes in price. If you look at the graph in your left, it shows a change in quantity demanded. So the demand curve is not shifting anywhere, but there is a movement along the demand curve. If you look at the second graph, that shows a change in demand. You can see the demand curve itself has shifted from D to D1. Let me explain you guys how to show a change in quantity demanded using a demand curve. First, we need to construct a demand curve. I'll start with my price axis. Price is always taken to y-axis and my quantity axis is x-axis. Price and quantity. I'm going to construct a demand curve with downward sloping. So this is my demand curve and I label it as D, the original demand curve. First I'm going to pick a price and show you at this price how much will be the quantity demanded. When my price is P1, quantity demanded is going to be Q1. So this combination, if we identify along the demand curve, that is here, I label it as point A. Now I'm going to show you, when I change the prices, what is going to happen. I'm going to pick another price below P1, and I'm going to find out how much will be the quantity demanded when I decrease the prices from P1 to P2. This is my new price, P2. You all can see prices have gone down from P1 to P2, and we know by law of demand, when the prices go down, usually demand for the product should increase. So the quantity demanded should increase. If I look at my quantity axis, my new quantity is going to be at Q2. So the prices decrease from P1 to P2, quantities increase from Q1 to Q2. When the prices were P2 and the quantity was Q2, at that point on my demand curve, I can mark this point as point B. Now you all can see I have changed the prices from P1 to P2, followed by that my quantity has increased from Q1 to Q2. There are no changes to the demand curve. It did not shift either right or left, but there is a movement along the demand curve. That is from point A to point B. So this graph can show you when all other determinants of demand remain constant, if there is a change in price, there is a movement along the demand curve. This is a complete graph, so we can label this as a change in quantity demanded. Easiest way to remember this, when there is a change in quantity demanded, your demand curve will not shift, but there will be a movement along the demand curve. In this graph, I'm going to show you how to explain a change in demand using a demand curve. Let's start work by constructing a new demand curve. Demand is for x-axis, price is for y-axis. This is my quantity axis, and this is my price axis. This is my demand curve, and let me label it as D, and let's assume this is demand for particular product, and let me take a small example for you to understand how this change in demand can occur. Let's assume in 2018 demand for shoes was 19 million, and by 2019 the population of this country increased by 3%. So if you look at this small case study, in 2018 demand for shoes was 19 million if you look at the total market demand for shoes. But by 2019 or 2019 the population of this country has increased by 3%. So if you look at population is a determinant of demand, or else we call one of the conditions of demand, a factor which can influence the demand. If the population is increasing, that indicates there are more people out there in the market to buy these products. So what will happen to the demand? Demand will increase. If the demand is increasing, your demand curve should shift to the right. So I'm constructing my new demand curve here that indicates the shift in demand curve. The demand has increased to D1, but the prices did not change because here we are considering a change in demand. You always need to remember a change in demand is occurring due to changes in determinants of demand. So if the price remained constant, let's assume the price was at P1. In 2018, the demand was 19 million, but now since the population increased, demand has increased. So this 19 million has increased. Let's assume this increased to 20 million. So original quantity was 19 million and the new quantity is 20 million. So in this particular graph, you can see there is no change in price, but there is a change in demand. Why the change in demand occurred? That is due to change in population size. Population size increased. As a result, demand increased. So in summary, you should remember when there is a change in demand, your demand curve is shifting either right or left, but your price remained constant. So this is how a graph would look like, which shows a change in demand.